Hello folks, today I'm going to be showing you some of the techniques I've been using in this truck build I've been creating. So last time you saw it, it was a bare frame. I mean, it had the suspension and axles hung in there, but that was it. I've got a lot of progress done since then, obviously, and I'm just going to go over some of the techniques I used to achieve some effects with minimal work, although minimal work's not exactly the right word, because if you want to go maximum detail, it's going to take a long time. Unfortunately, in simple planes, that's just kind of how it is. But, so yeah, we got the engine in, the transmission, the drive shaft, the fuel tanks, the air tanks, the radiator, and I don't know if there's anything else I added. But yeah, so as you can see, the engine's definitely not perfect, but I mean, I think I got a lot of the major details. I will put in the video now some images of the original, and so you can kind of see how the engine is looking in relation to the real one, the one I'm copying it off of. So I basically just have BeamNG running on my second screen all the time when I'm building, so I could just constantly be scrolling around and looking so I'm at it, so I'm building it as accurately as possible. And so one of the first techniques is obviously the rotors. So rotors have this beautiful texture to them, and you can utilize it to create things with texture. Like you can see these intake manifolds here. This works especially well with this engine because it is a 6-cylinder, supposed to be a 6-cylinder inline diesel engine, and this rotor has 6 little louvers, I guess you could call them, 6 ridges to it. And so it makes a real nice textured look without having to place in each one of those fuselages individually, which saves so much time. And then there's this one over here, which basically has the same effect. It just creates some texture on the side of the engine, like maybe 6-cylinder sidewalls. And then same thing for the alternator down here. I have this magnet, the magnet part, because it also has ridges to it, and that made kind of a nice textured look. And these are just little things that'll save you time, but they also look nice. And obviously the radiator is one of the main and most famous uses for the rotor. And yeah, I have two of them stuffed together so you get a little bit of Z fighting here, but since it's a dark color it doesn't show too much. And then of course there's just a lot of plumbing, all these radiator lines. And I did not do the injection lines, which this is the injection pump here, and these would be the injector. Your injectors would go into the cylinder head here, but I didn't put any of the lines in because, I mean, I'll show a picture of what the lines look like. Yeah, they're a little crazy, and that would take forever, and I'm just not going to put in that much detail. It's not worth it. Anyways, we move back to the transmission, and the transmission is really very, very simple. I did not do a whole lot of detail with the transmission, and it didn't take me very long, but that's okay. But the drive shaft, this is where this thing here, it took some time and some doing to get to where it is, and it's still kind of awful, but I'm going to show you this in-game, because what I really wanted to do is create a drive shaft that spun, but also that was able to connect to the differential realistically and move with the suspension. And that's difficult to do because you can use hinge rotors, but you can't adjust their position from the get-go. They are always going to be facing straight, and if you angle them, it just causes a lot of problems. So I had to make my custom universal joints here, and well, well, it kind of is terrible because you have to get the angles perfectly in order for it to not wobble. And yeah, I didn't get it perfectly, but I mean, it's good. It gives it character, a little bit of rattling around, and so you can see that it spins, but since it has so much resistance, it slows down really quickly. And yes, I did use jets to kind of get it spinning, because they're the simplest way to spin parts. And I do have the limitless spin mod on at the moment, which I would recommend for anyone. But if you don't have it, it'll just spin a little bit slower as its max speed, so it's not going to break it or anything if you don't have that mod. And then the turbo. The turbo is mostly just cosmetics, except I did put a jet in the backside here, so it does provide sound effects. Sorry, that may have been too loud. So it does provide sound effects as well as a visual, although this is going to be covered up. Of course, I'm going to have the exhaust pipe going up to the stack and the intake as well. But so it's mostly just for me knowing that that's in there, and also the sound, of course. And then for this fan, this cooling fan in the front, you'll notice that it spins all the time. It spins all the time. It just spins slower when you're at an idle, and then when you give it gas, it speeds up. And if I stop again, you'll see it takes a bit, but it does slow down. So how did I do that? Well, I'll show you the funky trees code I used. I don't even remember where I got this from, but I used it in another build of mine a while back. And I was just like, oh, well, that's clever. I'll use that again. Might as well, right? So you put it in the input slot, and it's just, I have Activate 8 so you can turn it off, but that function's not working at the moment. I need to work on that a little more. But the most important part is this right here. So basically asterisk, which is times, and then you have your, in parentheses, your value that you want it to go to when you hit pitch. So it's multiplied by pitch. Then you have plus your idle value, which is 0.2. So it's so basically like a little less than a quarter of the maximum RPM, or the maximum speed of the propeller, is utilized when it's at an idle. And then when you hit pitch, it puts it up the rest of the way, because my logic is 0.8 plus 0.2 equals 1, and that's full throttle on the propeller basically. And I could have made this out of a custom propeller spun by jets, and that would have worked just fine as well. It'd just be a lot more complicated and take a lot longer to build. And so this is a much simpler way, just using the stock propeller and modifying it quite a bit. So that's interesting. So that's a nice thing to know. And then other than that, it's pretty simple. You saw the rest of it. I mean, just a ton of cosmetics, a ton of placing parts. Currently we're up to 549. I'm guessing when I add the cab, it'll probably be a little closer to 1,000 parts when I add everything. So it might not be exactly mobile friendly, but that's fine. I wasn't intending it to be. But yeah, progress is coming good. Oh, I forgot a very important part. You may notice that the engine is on a tilt mount. Now that's fun. So I'll bring up some screenshots. I selected, after I built the engine, because it's really hard to build an engine on a tilt already, to build anything on a slight incline. But I built it completely level with the frame, just in straight line. And then once I had it completely done, I went to this guy and I unselected the engine, or I disconnected the engine from the frame, so it was not connected to anything. And then I selected the bell housing right here, because this is the pivotal point I wanted it to pivot from. And then I just moved these guys around to put it to negative 2.5 degrees of a slope, basically. So it's tilted up a little in the front and the transmission a little in the back. And that's how it is in the game, which is why I did that, of course. And so I was stressing that I would have to select every part using this tool. I don't even remember what it's called, but using this tool, select every single part with the multi-select thing, and then manually do it all. But no, it's much easier to just disconnect it from the rest of the build, and then select select your point that you want it to rotate from, select all the parts connected to it, and then rotate it from there. And that was much simpler, and I was laughing because it looks so funny to just have the engine like being able to tilt around in here. But yeah, as I said, progress is coming good. I had to stiffen up the leaf springs a lot because apparently these things really, really are not stiff enough. But yeah, the cab, and then I am going to shrink it down when I'm done to put it to scale, which you can also do with this tool. There's a to scale thingy, which I'm going to use, and that'll make it a lot simpler. I'm building it large because parts just snap together easier without having to constantly use this when they're larger like this. They just snap together easier. So it's just going to make the building process a little easier and a little quicker, and that's why I chose to do it. So I hope you enjoyed this little peek into how the project's coming, and maybe you learned something about building techniques, how to more quickly build things. And this universal drive, oh boy, I wouldn't recommend it because, I mean, if you want to go full immersion, it's great, but that took too long and it doesn't even work that good, but it looks cool, I guess. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time with hopefully another update.